Retro Care back again. Hope you all had a lovely Christmas and a Happy New Year to you. If it's not too late to wish people a Happy New Year. I had a good Christmas. As you can see, I've got a neon Retro Kevo sign, which my good wife bought me. She also bought me a Mastertronic t-shirt. Those who've been watching some of my videos will know I've been collecting Mastertronic games. There's a few more up on my Mastertronic shelf, which I received over Christmas, which I'll be doing some videos on in the future. But anyway, I'm here to talk about this. So I lean over. It's the film, The Rubber Keyed Wonder, by those at Gracious Films, and it really is a lovely film. I watched it this morning. It started as a Kickstarter project about 3 years ago. I backed it, and it's taken time, but I've got no issue with that. It takes a long time to put together a documentary like that, getting the people on board. They even got the Sinclair family on board, Gracious Films. It's Anthony and Nicola Caulfield. Done a great job getting those involved in this film, and I watched it this morning now. Once you sort of back to film by Gracious Films, they normally send you little bits and bobs over the months via email, digital sort of bits of footage, but I sort of refrain from sort of watching any of that. And it's really great they do that, don't get me wrong, but I just wanted to put the Blu-ray in, knowing only little bits and bobs about it, and watch it from start to finish. And that's what I did this morning. I sat there on the sofa, put the Blu-ray in, and right from the word go, there's a song called It's a Precious Thing, and it's got some footage of young children playing the ZX Spectrum. And that was taken, actually, by the way, in the Centre for the History of Computing, which is in Cambridge. I think it's called the Centre of Computing History. That's the full title, in Cambridge. If you get a chance to go to that museum, you've got to go there because it's absolutely brilliant. Covers everything right the way back to pre-sort of 60s, even earlier, right the way up to now. But what they do have is they have a little area in the corner, and it's like a living room from the early 80s. It's got an old VCR, an old TV. It's even sort of got like the carpet and curtains in that little area to make it look like the early 80s. And that's where they took that little bit of footage for this film, Rubber Key Wonder, where the children are playing on the Spectrum. That's where they got that footage. So that's just a little side note. Get a chance, go and visit that museum. But yeah, the film itself, as I say, once that sort of song kicked in, and I saw them playing the Spectrum, I thought, yeah, this is going to be good. But what I found about the film is it was really informative as well as being very nostalgic. It really takes you through the drive of Sir Clive Sinclair, how driven he was to produce products, what a creative force he was, really. The minute he made something, he wanted to push on, sometimes to the detriment of himself or his products. He wanted to push on to the next thing. And it shows you how the sort of Sinclair products, now personally, I sort of remember vaguely have hazy memories of seeing Sinclair calculators and stuff in the shops like Dixon's or wherever the electric shops were back then. And then obviously they talk about the creation of the ZX80 and the ZX81. Now the ZX81 was more memory for me. I was probably 10 or 11 and I started to see that, and I thought, oh God, I'd really like to get one. And I never managed to get a ZX81, but it talks about how they went through that and how eventually after the ZX81 they were going to call the next computer after that the ZX82, which sort of made sense a year after. But Sir Clive sort of come up with the idea and said, no, we'll call it something else. We'll call it the Spectrum. Because once you sort of start calling it the year, then you have to make something every year. So that was really, really good idea to change the name. And of course, you know, the name Spectrum goes down in history now. We're brought in more and know about that computer. But yeah, so there's all those sort of facts about Sinclair, the company itself, and Sir Clive, but also the nostalgic stuff. There's a lovely section where you sort of see about 5 minutes or so of all some gaming footage to music, and it's one of them where you watch it, you go, oh, I remember that game, you know. And then it talks to the programmers, it talks to the people who sort of grew up, probably about my age or a bit older, and how when the ZX81 and especially the ZX Spectrum came out, they were able to start to learn how to do programming, like basic and then onto machine code. So because of the Spectrum and because of Sir Clive Sinclair's sort of thought process of bringing computing into the home, these people ended up getting jobs, you know, in computing, ended up sort of writing software, making the games. And then it talks about, you know, Crash Magazine and how, you know, we all started to read the magazines and people would write into magazines and they'd give you sort of ways of completing games. If you were lucky enough, they'd sort of print, I never had a letter printed that I sent into any of these magazines. If you were lucky enough, they'd answer all your questions in the magazine. And the other thing is they sort of got young people involved. In the film, they tell you about how they sort of spoke to 15, 16, 17-year-old lads who were playing the games. They got them to review the games. And I was thinking how, you know, the reviews were honest then. If they sort of panned the game and the magazine gave it sort of 23% out of 100%, you wouldn't buy it. So the sort of games live or died by these reviews. Often, we know now in modern days, you know, often, you know, people are paid to give reviews. You'll see somebody give something a really good review and it would be an awful game really. But, you know, but back then, those reviewers are really honest in Crash Magazine and stuff. And it was really interesting to see that side of thing. And also there's obviously loads of footage from back then, you know. stuff about sort of the games in the shops, just sort of seeing the old footage of the games and the computers back then was really lovely. Now, personally, I used to get my games at places like Dixon's, sort of John Menzies, Woolworths. You'd go there, and that's where I'd get the games. But it's lovely seeing in this film, The Rubber Key Wonder, that old footage from back there. It's really interesting stuff. And also back again to the fact, stuff like, I didn't realise there were so many clones of the ZX Spectrum around the world. There's like 40 million clones altogether. And, Sinclair Research, the company, they didn't get a penny for it. So imagine all the money, that they'd missed out on. It could have been ploughed back into other products. Because the film also goes on into sort of what happened to Sinclair Research. We all know it went bust, and they, Sir Clive Sinclair did a deal with Alan Sugar, and that's all covered in the film. But I have to say, I thoroughly enjoyed the film. 10 out of 10 for me. Got the balance right between informing you about how the Spectrum came about, but also the nostalgic stuff and the way, and obviously the games. The big thing was the games. But yeah, I have to say, I absolutely loved it. 10 out of 10 for this documentary. Fair play to those people at Gracious Films, Anthony and Nicola Caulfield, who put the film together. It must have taken a lot of work. So, people like myself are really grateful that you make the effort to make these films. Otherwise, they'd never see the light of day. So I'm really happy with that. So that's my little review of The Rubber Keyed Wonder. I hope you enjoyed the video. Like and subscribe if you like the stuff I do. As I say, I'll be back with some more videos. As I say, I'll be doing more stuff on the Mastertronic games, and also I've got my Commodore 64, but I keep saying it, but I will eventually get round to doing some Commodore 64 stuff. I've got my hands on a Commodore 64 floppy disk, and I've got some games on disk, and I'll be going into a bit of stuff with that as well. So hopefully, if you're interested, subscribe, and you'll get a notification for those videos. Anyway, look after yourself, and I'll see you all soon. Take care.